Hello, I'm Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and welcome to my blog, where it is both my mission and my pleasure to highlight my creative journey in hopes of inspiring you, giving you a specific takeaway. All that way, your journey can be at least a little bit easier. Now, before I fully dive into things, allow me to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already, that we get all the various lessons and episodes that I put out right when I put them out. Thank you if you just did, and thank you if you already were. It truly does mean a lot to me, as I hope it does to you. So, let's get into this. This past week has been kind of a whirlwind of exciting stuff, right? Every week at the start of it, I create a to-do list and try to knock everything off that list. And this week, a lot of things kind of came up that I had to react to in a good way. So, first off, let me start off by saying all the things that are now being presented to me as opportunities are because people are taking notice of the stuff I've done in the past, right? And that's always been the goal, is to showcase that I want to work, that I can create, and figure out a way to make stuff happen regardless of the circumstances. And so it really is taking a leap of faith on yourself in spite of whatever criticism there may be. And, I've certainly dealt with obstacles along the way and heartaches and stuff of that nature, and dealt with the naysayers, right? The ones who nitpick a project and say, oh, here's how it could have been improved and so forth. And not in a constructive way, right? I think, whenever I talk about someone who's a naysayer, it's not in the spirit of someone that is rooting for you and that is trying to add genuine input to elevate what you are doing. But people, whether it's jealousy, envy, just their own insecurities, whatever it may be, that's who I'm referring to, right? And it is moments such as last week, that really showcased to me that you can't take it to heart ever. And it is because of the things, however, meaningful or meaningless in those moments it might seem, that actually propel you forward. They act as stepping stones. Now, you should never look at them as stepping stones. Every project that I've ever done, I've given it my all as if it could potentially be my last. Not that I ever thought that necessarily, but, certainly you give it your all in those moments. And it's because of that reason people see that effort, the creativity, the dedication, and so forth to get it done. And so that puts me at this opportunity. So I know I'm laboring the point, but it's interesting how many people don't adhere to that, and try to set themselves up where everything's perfect, or they have a fear of being judged and so they don't step forward, yada, 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 right? And, that's just not me. I find the joy in creating, and there's room for improvement with everything that I do, and I'm well aware of the pitfalls and so forth. But, now my big thing with my most recent movie is, listen, you might not be able to like my movie, but you can't tell me I made a piece of shit movie, right? And especially now seeing the things that are coming, the opportunities that are coming because of that movie, which wouldn't have been possible without my first movie and everything else that came before then, right? It's all a part of it. It's all a journey. Anyway, so now where I'm at is I have this project that is aimed to be a trilogy. It's an animated series of movies, and I have the opportunity to present it to people who invest in movies, and I don't know what'll come of that, but I'm putting myself in the position to be able to do that. And what's nice is, unlike past crowdfund campaigns and so forth, I have someone who really believes in this and is pushing it forward and putting their resources into making sure that it succeeds from that perspective, which is a very good position to be in. Somewhat daunting in the sense that I've never been in that position, but it's fun, having sort of the wind at your sails. Not that it doesn't mean that there's not a lot of work. It's almost like you have the wind at your sails and you're going really fast, but the water's turbulent. Like there's tons of waves, and so you're kind of having to manage all of that at the same time while going extremely fast. So that's what this kind of feels like. But, knowing that there's other people there along with me is really awesome. And, I've had people be collaborative with me, certainly, and, in a very positive way. Like, I have so many, thank God for every single one of those people, but they've been on the creative side, and we've managed to get it done. Now I have someone on, let's say, more of the business angle, and kind of looking at the larger picture of it all, and that's really exciting. And part of in doing this, and just talking about taking another sort of leap of faith, is doing this project as an NFT project. And it's like, okay, well, what does that even mean, right? That's a very fancy term that you might have heard of, okay, an NFT, non-fungible token, but what the hell does that actually mean, right? And so being able to deep dive that and figure out the specifics for this project and how it applies to people, and being able to talk about it with people in a layman's term, that's part of the challenge. And also, through all of it, there's the legality side, right? And so, this person that I'm collaborating with, they're bringing in their legal counsel to make sure that's all cleared up and so forth, which is, again, another resource that, I've had friends that have helped me out, but certainly in the crypto NFT space, it requires a next level expertise that, in addition to the entertainment law, let's say, right? And so that's been another great aspect of all of this. And one thing I guess I should say was that anytime I've talked about NFTs and crypto, it should be noted that it was always for educational purposes, right? And it's true, because part of this whole journey is learning that space and getting myself educated about, Web 3.0 and the tools that exist in there. And when I say Web 3.0, I also use that as an all-encompassing term, which I know is not directly supposed to be an umbrella term for this, but artificial intelligence tools and capabilities, what's the like Midjourney, I think it's called, which is a AI for creating images. But anyway, so I'm excited to sort of dive into that for the reason that I think it leverages the ability of artists to have ownership and make money with their stuff and bring it to a wide array of audiences and create some really cool stuff, and it's a very interesting time, certainly, to be considering that and saying this just in general, because there's FTX, right? And what happened there? Well, the difference with that is that was centralized, whereas the crypto space that I advocate for and am a fan of is the decentralized, which it's a very nuanced sort of thing that I'm ill prepared to really deep dive and explain. Like I kind of know it in my heart of hearts of like what it all means, but I'm not at a place to be able to teach it. And it's when you can teach something where you're a true master, and that's what this process really for me is aimed towards, to become an expert in this space, so I can help other artists achieve the same thing, right? I want to provide a way to do that. So, that's been really interesting. And so I'm learning about the NFT space as much as I can, right? Whether it's Kevin Smith's movie, looking up every movie that has had an NFT component, and all that stuff, right? And also just kind of getting my head around Discord, because that's a big place where just communities in general, but certainly the Web 3.0 community is located, and talking and things of that nature. So, really trying to just be a good observer and ingratiate myself into the culture, as it were, right? And so, as part of all this, I'm having to create a pitch deck, the outline revisions, and as well as the text for what, as far as like, taking the copy that might appear when you do a standard crowdfund campaign. So typing that out and then trying to fit it into, the NFT space and stuff like that. So it's been very interesting, and I'll keep you kind of updated on all of this, but a lot of it's going into the presentational material. And right now, just call it ad copy, if you will, or just copy in general, right? Meaning text for all of this stuff. And some of it's like I have to create a video talking about what the project is, and various things. So some things you can kind of recycle, but then of course, based on if it's just, going to be text-based, you kind of want to put it some way, versus like if you're talking about it, you just kind of alter it slightly and so forth, right? To these different mediums. So I've been really working on that, and I think I have a pretty decent pitch deck. It's just strictly from the content side. I always like to get a flow for everything, pull pictures and just kind of not randomly, but, very crudely put them in. And then once that's all sort of buttoned up, then go to a graphic designer to be like, okay, here's everything that you would need, now actually give it a visual flair, and kind of taking it from there. So that'll happen, or start to happen, this week. Also as part of that, a big component for the pitch deck is having the various characters drawn for the pitch deck, because it's an animated movie, and so you want to showcase that, right? And that's been a big goal of mine, is just to get as many characters sketched out as we can. And when I say sketched out, I mean quite literally. It would be great to have like a final beautiful rendering of it, but just for now, it's like, as long as we can kind of showcase just a component of it, enough to paint the picture, as it were, then that's sort of most important to me. The other sort of aspect, I said that, the outline was part of it. I had a great meeting, in fact, just today, with two of my collaborators that are very story oriented, John Comfort and Sarah Stratton. And Sarah Stratton in particular loves fantasy and science fiction. John's just a great storyteller and script doctor. And so we had about an hour and 40-minute meeting about everything. And it's always one of those interesting things, because you you're essentially taking shots, and I appreciate it, right? Like it's all needed whenever I'm sort of working on this. It's just me alone with my thoughts, and no sounding board. And it's just great to get their feedback on, okay, what is overall working, and then the biggest questions, and the questions really allow me to then go back to it and figure out, okay, what are the problems and how do I solve for them, right? Because they're questions that I wouldn't have been able to think of myself, right? And not only that, they're also wonderful because, throughout the whole process, as a question gets raised, I go to answer it, right? And kind of, talk about what it is that I'm going for something that, let's say, that caused confusion. And then they can start to generate some ideas. So it works in that way as well, and it's really exciting. It's one of my favorite aspects, right? And it's certainly a very daunting story. Like this is, the fact that it's a trilogy is, audacious enough. And right now we're focusing strictly on the first movie of it. And yeah, you just have to keep working and revising on it, because whenever you do ultimately read any beloved work, or see a movie or a TV show, or listen to an audio drama, whatever it may be, the fact of the matter is, the more effortless it seems, the more like streamlined everything is and perfected, and the needleless thread throughout. What you come to learn is the harder it was. It's years of dedication, it's craftsmanship, studying, time just sitting at the table, writing, thinking, collaborating, and so forth. And so that's my goal, and I'm very grateful to have people like this in my life, and to provide that feedback and drive the direction of something, and be also at the same time encouraging, right? I think when I talked about naysayers a little bit earlier, I think that's a big component where I can tell who's genuine and giving me that input because they want to see this succeed, versus someone that's just tearing you down. And we kind of wrap things up at the end, and they talked about, because about an hour and 35 of it, let's say, was really okay, here's questions, here's potential issues, blah blah blah. But then we did wrap it up of here's what did work, and there was the also overall encouragement of, I really believe in this story, and I want to see you tell it. And that was great. And as I kind of joked, listen, I don't know if I'm the right person to tell this story, but I will do everything in my power and go all the way with it because to tell it. And that's a major theme of this story that I'm trying to tell in general. It's there's a character, there's the main character, right? And it draws inspirations, it's akin to The Matrix or Star Wars or whatever, where you have this, or Harry Potter, where you have this chosen one. But I'm trying to work against the idea of that they're the chosen one because they're special just inherently, but they're the chosen one because they stepped forward, right? And all that to say that we all have the ability if we just step forward, right? And in that same way, that's essentially my journey with this. It's this is the idea I had. Certainly, someone let's say, a Neil Gaiman, who I absolutely adore, would be able to just do wonders with this, or and do it much faster than perhaps I could. But maybe he'll join me. I don't know. I'm putting that into the universe. Neil Gaiman, if you want to join me in writing this, I would gladly welcome you. But all the same, the idea came to me. It's resonating with me, and I'm the one to tell it because I am the one doing it, right? Because if it was meant for somebody else, then they would be doing it. So yeah, it really just is all about kind of just stepping forward, and we have agency in that way. So that's the bulk of sort of everything. I want to get into some other areas real quick though. But before I do want to make mention of my Patreon page, patreon.com/Phil Svitek. That's a way to support me and everything that I do. And in exchange, you get to interact with me on a more personal level. And so what I've done is, and you get a behind the scenes look at various things that I create. So, there's just one tier of support. It's $10 a month. It's like having a subscription to me. And yeah, you get bonus stuff. You get a monthly Q&A and things of that nature. So that is available to you if that's something of interest. Or of course, you can just go straight for my coaching, or support me through my books, my movies that are available to you. Those are all linked to down below if you want to check those out. But anyway, a few of you reached out. Because last week on the vlog I talked about my dog, and that she's going through health stuff. The good news is, she had these seizures. She's on meds now, so as of now she's not had any more seizures. She's back to being sort of overall her regular self. We have a checkup tomorrow. But overall, she's going to be dealing with stuff, but overall, her quality of life, which was the main thing, remains very good. And so I'm happy for that. So, great to be able to report that. Also, December 3rd at noon, team filmmakers and I are going to be at LA Comic-Con in room 405. And we're going to be going over how to make a feature film on an indie budget without sacrificing scope and scale and ambition. And so I'm very excited for that. We've been, behind the scenes prepping and making sure that we have good tips for everyone that does show up, that we have good visual aids, that we have just all that stuff, right? So that's been a fun process. Again, lots of effort and time going into it, but it'll all be worth it, and I'm really excited for it. So, and then the last part, I've been dealing with this tech issue of exporting a master video file for a project of mine, and the main thing that's been kind of hindering me is the export of these audio submixes. So, the master video itself needed to have a 5.1 mix, a stereo mix without the dialogue, so just the music and the effects, and then a 5.1 mix of just the music and effects as well. So those are the 4 submixes. And I was just having these various issues with Adobe for one reason or another, for quite some time, for this in particular. But finally, I managed to crack the case, and I will do a video on that in the future. So, people kind of know what I did and how to do it for themselves. But, that's kind of what I've been dealing with. And, you just, again, if you just kind of work at the problem, as Albert Einstein says, it's just, continue to work at the problem, and you will get towards the solution. Also, just something completely random that I thought I'd share. I was watching Shark Tank, and this guy had an invention for bananas so that they don't go bad as fast. And apparently, so he had this like little hat thing that you put at the top of the bananas. And I don't know the full science behind it. Apparently, it's like something to do with oxygen or something being absorbed, not being absorbed. And Damon, on the show, he asked, so is that why they have like the little plastic wrap sometimes on the bananas at the grocery store because they're trying to preserve them for longer? And he's like, yeah. And so it's like, I appreciate this product. I don't know if I'll buy it, because it's the simple idea. I just need to put like something to cap off like the top of my bananas, and then they'll stay, fresh for longer. So I figured that was kind of like a mind-boggling, simple tip that it's like, no, who would have ever thought of that? Because, whenever I buy bananas, like, I feel like the obligation to eat them within like 2 to 3 days because then they start to go bad. But now apparently this adds like, 5 to 8, maybe 10 days, depending on the bananas they are and so forth. So, yeah, this certainly helps me out. I figured maybe it'll help you out. And that's why I call myself the 360 creative coach, because anything that's a benefit in life, why not, right? So, that's what I have for you this week. Thank you as always for taking the time to tune in. I truly do appreciate you. As always, if you have any questions or thoughts of your own, comment down below or hit me up on social media at Bill Svitek. Would love to hear from you. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate you. Enjoy the World Cup, and I'll see you next time.